Is that too bright? Oh, it's too bright. How's that? Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. So good to have you in the studio with me today. My name is Stephen Cooley, and you're watching Windows to Heaven Art. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff if you like the content, want to see more. But let's get straight into it. Do you want to learn a thing or two about acrylic portrait painting? I, for one, do. I have done only one, really, in the past that I felt worked out, but that doesn't mean that I didn't try before that to do an acrylic portrait painting. As much as it hurts me to show you this painting, I'm going to do it because it proves a point. So, here we go. This is an acrylic portrait painting that I did years ago. I really wasn't that good. It proves a point. It proves that if I can get to where I'm at now painting after doing that, anybody can do it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try another acrylic portrait painting in this video. You guys can learn along with me, so let's jump into it. After I get my canvas all prepared and ready to paint on, I'm going to be using this 24-piece Reeves acrylic color set that you see me opening up here to paint the painting. There's a quick preview of what I'm going to be using, and the canvas size is just a small 10 by 8 inch canvas. And now I'm going to take some raw sienna acrylic paint and tone the canvas. And as I always say, toning your canvas before painting on it really helps you judge color and also provides a much nicer filler for maybe bits of background that you don't end up covering totally with paint. So instead of a harsh white shining through your painting, you have a nice warm brown shining through, which adds more, I think, of a professional quality to your work. And I'm jumping in now with a freehand sketch. So the idea for this painting is I really wanted to make it as organic as I could. So I have a reference photo that I'm looking at, but aside from that, I'm just totally, as they say, eyeballing it. I'm not using any tracing of any kind. I'm just training my eye to capture what I see. And I'm always amazed at how my painting looks like the reference photo, but it's always unique somehow. It always ends up being a little bit different in some way. And because I wasn't tracing the portrait, I had to come up with a way to make sure that the proportions were accurate. So a simple trick that I use is I just take the paintbrush stick and I will measure out the size of, for example, the eyes in proportion to, let's say, the size of the nose. And then I'll go to my reference photo and I'll just do a quick measurement to compare it with. And that way I can get it pretty accurate. And there is the finished sketch. Now I'm ready to get some paints and start blocking in the painting. And I'm going to start with what is furthest away and work my way forward. And in this case, of course, the background, which is going to be quite simple, is what's furthest away. So I'm going to block that in first, keeping in mind as I do so where my light source is. For me, it's coming in from the right, so I'm painting the background to complement the shadows and highlights on the person. So I want the right side of the background to be darker to contrast nicely with the highlights on the portrait, and I want the background of the painting on the left side to be a little bit lighter, because that's where the shadows on the portrait are going to be. And I just think that will work together to create a nice dynamic portrait where the person will just really stand out. Okay, so I've blocked in his shirt, and now I'm moving on to his face, and you can see I got some flesh tone that I found in the pack that I'm using of the Reeves acrylic paint, but I'm not going to rely solely on this flesh tone color for all of the skin in the portrait. The colors in the portrait, and also just I think in any portrait, are a lot more complex than that. You'll find a lot more colors in somebody's face than just your generic flesh tone. For instance, up towards the forehead is going to be a little bit more yellow in general because there's less blood in that area of the skin. And also it's going to be a little bit more red around the eyes and nose and in the ears in general because there's more blood. And probably a little bit more grayish around the jaw and mouth area. These are just very generic and general tips for color in a portrait. Obviously, the lighting has a huge part to play in the colors that you see, but the main point is I'm not going to simply rely on this one color just because it says flesh tone. Now, as I was blocking in the painting and I got to the point where I was painting on the actual portrait part of the painting, I painted the highlighted portions on the person's face that I had directed by the sketch, and then I painted likewise the shadowed portions of the person's face, and I just kept it super simple. I just paint what I saw in the reference photo, just super simple, where the lines were of the shadows and where the lines were of the highlights, and I didn't worry about blending. I just kept it simple, and that's what you want to remember from the outset, is you don't get to the detailed parts before you have the simple parts mapped out. It's easy to fall prey to the temptation of I want this to be really detailed, so you get in there right away and start working on details. But I think it avoids a lot of angst in your painting process if you do the simple stuff and then work your way from the simple stuff into the more complex. And that is really what you're going to see me doing here. that sums it up for this one. Thank you ever so much. Hope to see you in the next video, and until then, God bless you guys. We'll see you later.